Today, I am presenting to you a detailed article on the purported speech attributed to Ibrahim Traore at the United Nations, the controversies around it, and what fact-checkers have established. So it's not everything online that you take hook and sinker. There are certain things that can be challenged. Africa will not kneel. That is the title of the purported speech of Ibrahim Traore. So we want to explain what is there. First of all, who is Ibrahim Traore? Ibrahim Traore is the military leader of Burkina Faso, having taken power in a coup in 2022. And his public statements, he has emphasized anti-imperialism, sovereignty, and a break from France's historical influence in the Sahel region. I believe that is the right step to take by every sovereign nation. And what is the purported speech we're talking about now? The very speech we're talking about now is what we want to explain now. A video and script and transcript have been circulating on social media platforms since around May 2025, that's this year, which claimed that Traore delivered a speech before the United Nations General Assembly with forceful anti-colonial and anti-Western rhetoric. The speech allegedly contains passages such as, we are going to be analyzing this so that you know what we are talking about. Africa is not rising to kneel, but to stand on its feet. And today, before this great assembly of nations, I say Africa will not kneel. That is part of the speech. Let us now watch some of the circulated videos here, and I'll be back. Watch.
Delegates, heads of state, leaders of nations, distinguished representatives of peoples great and small, I greet you not as a career diplomat, nor as a man bred for banquet halls and handshakes. I do not come to you speaking the rehearsed language of polished politics. I come to you as a soldier of my people, as a guardian of a wounded land, as a son of a continent that has carried the cross of the world, yet has never worn its crown. My name is Captain Ibrahim Traore, President of Burkina Faso, and today I speak not only for the 22 million souls in my nation, but for a continent whose stories have been twisted, whose pain has been ignored, and whose dignity has been repeatedly auctioned off at the altar of foreign interests. Africa is not a beggar. Africa is not a battlefield. Africa is not your experiment, your puppet, your warehouse of raw materials. Africa is rising not to kneel, but to stand. And today I say before this great assembly of nations, Africa will not kneel. One on the false generosity of global politics. For decades you've sent us aid with one hand while extracting our lifeblood with the other. You build wells in our villages while your corporations drain our rivers. You donate vaccines yet patent the cures. You speak of climate action yet continue to fund the very forces that burn our forests and dry our lakes. What kind of generosity is this? The kind that feeds the mouth but silences the voice. The kind that keeps a man alive just enough to keep him dependent. We are not blind to this hypocrisy. Let me be clear, we are not ungrateful for sincere humanitarian assistance, but we reject a global order that disguises exploitation as partnership. Reject financial institutions that lend with one hand and steal sovereignty with the other. Africa no longer wants charity. We want justice. We want control over our own destinies. Too on the chains of colonialism and its modern descendants. Our wounds did not begin with us. They were inherited legacies of an empire-building madness that saw us not as humans, but chiefs, as cargo laboratories. My ancestors were not consulted when maps were drawn with rulers and compasses in Berlin. The borders of Burkina Faso, like those of many African nations, were not carved by our ancestors, but by men who had never stepped foot on our soil, who knew nothing about languages, our tribes, or our spirits. Today, colonialism has a new face. It wears suits, it hosts forums, it signs contracts in Geneva and Paris and Washington. But it still takes without consent, it still dictates instead of dialogues, it still silences instead of listening. If you want to talk about peace, then let's begin by unlearning the arrogance that peace is something only you can teach us. 3. On resource exploitation and the myth of development. They call us developing as if the theft of centuries did not set us back. As if the gold from our lands, the diamonds from our rivers, the oil beneath our feet did not build the very skyscrapers in dot, which this assembly sits. Let us speak plainly. Burkina Faso is rich, Africa is rich. Rich in minerals and culture and wisdom and youth. But you have taught us to measure richness in GDP and export value. You call it development. when a foreign company owns 90% of a gold mine on our land. You call it progress when your security forces guard cobalt mines but not our children's schools. That is not progress, that is piracy with legal documents. From now on, we will define development on our own terms. Development that puts children in classrooms, not minerals on cargo ships. Development that respects the land, the people, and the soul of a nation. For on sovereignty and interference. Why is it that when an African nation makes independent choices, we are called unstable? Why is it that when we seek military cooperation outside the colonial sphere, we are labeled a threat? Burkina Faso has chosen to walk a path of sovereignty that is not a threat to peace. It is a declaration of adulthood. We are no longer under your guardianship. We are no longer your junior partners in diplomacy. We are a free people. If a nation chooses partners that respect it rather than exploit it, that is not rebellion. That is wisdom. Let it be known, no foreign power will dictate the alliances of Burkina Faso. We will build relations based on mutual respect, not historical guilt or present-day intimidation. Fight on terrorism and manufacture wars. You ask why there is violence in the Sahel. You ask why our youth take up arms. But you do not ask who benefits when our mines are guarded by private mercenaries, while our villages are left vulnerable. You do not ask how weapons arrive in deserts that produce no steel. You do not ask why peacekeeping never seems to end the war. The truth is, many of the so-called solutions to African security problems are merely business models. Endless conflict has become a market, and African suffering has become a subscription-based service. Burkina Faso has decided to break that cycle. We will fight terror, but not with dependency. We will secure our nation not with foreign dictates, but with national dignity. 6. On migration and human dignity. We do not want our youth drowning in the Mediterranean. We do not want our brightest minds fleeing to countries that once called us savages. We do not want remittances. We want reasons for our people to stay. Why do our youth flee? Not because we lack beauty, but because we are made to lack opportunity. Not because we hate our land, but because our land is treated as someone else's property. Migration is not a crisis, it is a symptom of wars we did not start, of loans we did not need, of a world order that tells our youth their only value lies outside their own homes. The solution is not border fences. The solution is justice. For 7. On Africa's place in the world. Africa is not a mistake to be fixed. Africa is not a failed continent. Africa is the womb of the world, the cradle of civilization, the keeper of tomorrow's hope. We have been made invisible in global decisions that affect us deeply. At the UN Security Council, Africa with 54 sovereign nations has no permanent seat. What justice is this? You call it balance? We call it betrayal. You speak of democracy, yet uphold a global structure where the powerful few veto the dreams of the many. We will no longer whisper in rooms where we deserve to speak with full voice. 8. On faith and spiritual dignity. We are a spiritual people. Before your cathedrals, our ancestors sang to the sky. Before your missionaries, we knew the language of the rivers and the laws of the sacred forest. Christianity came, Islam came, and we received them not as slaves but as seekers. But now we ask, will the church and the mosque stand with us, truly with us, when all people are displaced by greed, masked as globalization? Will your pulpits echo our cries or only repeat the songs of the powerful? Faith, too, must be decolonized. It must walk with the poor, not the privileged. 9. On unity among African nations. This is not a speech from one country. This is the stirring of a continent. You see Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso forming a new bond. You fear our unity. Why? Because it threatens the myth that Africa can only rise under your supervision. We are uniting not to wage war, but to wage dignity. To pool our courage, to share strength. To protect each other when the world turns its back. Pan-Africanism is not a dream. It is our lifeline, and we will build it stone by stone, heart by heart, with or without your approval. 10. To the youth of Africa. To the young boy selling oranges by the roadside. To the girl who walks 10 kilometers to attend school. To the child whose only toy is a stone but who dreams of stars. You are the reason we fight. Do not believe the lie that your continent is cursed. You are the blessing. Do not envy foreign passports. Be proud of your name, your land, your roots. The world may not applaud you now, but the future will speak your name in honor. 11 final words we will not kneel. I do not come to declare war, I come to declare will. So we will not kneel to fear. We will not kneel to foreign banks. We will not kneel to outdated empires masquerading as friends. Africa is not asking for a seat at your table. We are building our own a table where no child eats last. Where no nation is silenced because it lacks nuclear arms. where justice is not filtered through the lens of race or history, but shared as breath is shared. This is our vision and this is our vow. Let the world hear it today and always. Africa will not kneel. Thank you.
Other parts of the speech in these circulated versions asserted that, that Western countries have perpetuated exploitation under the guise of aid, democracy, and development, which might be right, of course. Corporations build infrastructure or send supplies, but simultaneously extract resources, patent medicines, and perpetuate economic dependency, of which you cannot even dispute as well. The borders drawn during colonial times were done without the consent of African people, and that modern forms of colonialism continue via international treaties, contracts, forums, name it. These are some of their sessions. The speech is shared with dramatic visuals and English narration and subtitles in many cases, anyway, amplifying its switch. It's there in the social media, and I believe you've watched it there. But what do the fact checkers say? Because everything has to be put into test. We have to test the veracity of that thing. Despite the viral nature of the speech, multiple repeatable fact-checking organizations have determined that this speech is not authentic. It's not out of truth. There is no credibility evidence that Ibrahim Traore ever delivered such a speech at the United Nations. Why do we say so? Here are some of the findings. Let us begin to check them. Deepfake or altered video. The video in circulation appears to be manipulated. Visual and audio analysis show hallmarks of AI, synthetic content. And then another thing is the false location attribution. The video is claimed to be from a United Nations address, but parts of the video seem to originate from a meeting Traore had with Russian President Vladimir Putin, which has been misattributed or edited to look like a UN setting. You can go back to it and check yourself. Then another thing is lack of original records. There is no record in the United Nations official databases of such a speech by Traore at the UN. No transcript, no listings, no verifiable. There is nothing to show for it. English language version, that is another thing. Traore's speeches are normally in French, one of Burkina Faso's official languages. But this one, yet the viral version is in accented translated English or uses dubbing, which raises questions about authenticity. This is one of the fact that you can even take them on the video there as you watch on. Verify this, all this fact there. Then why has it spread and what are the implications? One, narrative resonance. The sentiments expressed in the speech, that is another fact. Anti-colonialism, economic justice, fighting dependency resonate with many across Africa and the global South. Many are inspired by the idea of a strong voice challenging perceived hypocrisies of powerful nations. This makes the content highly shareable, whether real or not, unarguably. The second point is propaganda or image building. Whether or not the speech is real, it functions as an element of political imagery, positioning Ibrahim Traore as a foreign figure, foreign dominant. This is useful both domestically for legitimacy and internationally for alliances and support. That is, if people believe it. And then the third point is misinformation risk. The spread of fake speeches, that is deep fakes, as they call it, can distort public perception. If people believe this speech happened, it may raise expectations or claims that are false. It also implicates verifying what leaders actually said, which is not good for the media when every speech delivered from leaders are questionable. As a result of things like this, it doesn't all go well. What we can conclude about this speech is this. As of the latest fact checking, there is no solid proof that Ibrahim Traore delivered the Africa will not kneel speech at the United Nations General Assembly. The speech appears to be fabricated, manufactured, using artificial intelligence, editing and misleading claims of venue and audience. But that does not mean that the themes of the speech are purely fictional. The criticisms of colonialism, resource extraction, inequity, and foreign influence are in line with some of Traore's publicly known positions. But the specific speech is not verified. That is one fact that we cannot run away from. It is a vivid example of how modern media, social platforms, deep fake, artificial intelligence, editing, video dubbing, name it, can amplify content and has a powerful emotional pull, even when it is not true. That is what we have in social media these days, and we need to be watchful. Broader implications, media truth and diplomacy, media literacy. This case emphasizes the need for audiences to check sources, especially for videos of political speeches. Just because something looks and sounds legitimate doesn't make it so. That is why we need to be careful. Platforms responsibility. Social media and video hosting platforms have roles to play in detecting synthetic content, flagging altered material, and ensuring accurate attribution. They have a task on their hands. Diplomatic fallout. That's another point. False attribution of strong anti-Western statements to leaders can inflammate diplomatic tensions. They may be used by political opponents or by foreign governments to frame narratives. It has been happening. So this one cannot be different. Authentic voices versus manufactured ones. There is a double-edged sword. Because the sentiment is real and powerful, fake speeches may erode trust in genuine speeches when people become skeptical of everything. And that is where we need to watch out to see that things like this are not allowed to fly. So we protect real ones there. But then final thought on this. Why the speech attributed to Ibrahim Traore at the United Nations under the title Africa Will Not Kneel captures many powerful truths about colonial history, economic injustice, and calls for sovereignty. It should currently be treated as fictional. That's my own take. The amplification of this speech says as much about the hopes and frustrations of many people as it does about the leader himself. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe for more.